All right. I think we are officially getting to be live here. Welcome, everybody, to the Lightning Strikes podcast. I'm one of your humble co hosts, Joe Herzog. And with me, per usual, is Joe Schultes. How's it going, Joe?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We all weathered the storms from last week's episode. So I'm just glad to see we're all here. All the roofs still over our heads. And I've got Jace with me from Northern Ohio. What's up, Jace?
Hey guys, how are you?
And so we also obviously have a new guest, Isaac. I'm gonna let Jace kind of introduce Isaac because obviously I've never met Isaac. So
Well, I
introduce
say
us.
let's Isaac introduce himself. That way he can
Go for it.
Yeah, he can talk amongst us very three talkative people.
Yeah.
So for sure. So obviously my name's Isaac. I've been in EVs for half a decade now. This is my fourth one. Probably my favorite one too. And I've just loved the space ever since I could think about it. 2015, once they started to pick up. I wanted one really bad, annoyed my wife bad enough that she finally caved. And she regrets that decision to this day because I never stopped talking about them.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have an outlet here to join other people that share the same views that I do. And that won't get mad at me for talking too much about it.
I think you've stumbled on to why I keep coming back to this podcast too, because I can relate. My wife really glosses over when I start talking about kilowatts and charging and so I hope that's what this show can also be for all of our viewers, just come and chat about all the stuff that nobody else in your life cares enough to sit and talk about. Okay, so Isaac, you mentioned that this is your fourth EV.
It is.
So
yes.
Can you just kind of give us the family lineage of how you ended up with your current vehicle?
Yeah. So I bought my first EV, which was a Model 3, coming from a Kia Soul in 2019, March of 2019. I had that through, I think it was December of 2019 or 2020, and then my son was born. And the Model 3 was far too small for the family that we were trying to create. So we got into a Model Y, and that was a big upgrade in terms of space. And I went from a standard range to a long range. And that was right as COVID was beginning. I started seeing all these stories about people being able to trade their cars in for more money than they had paid for it. And so a lot of that influence to move out of my Model Y into my next car, which was an ID4, was fueled by that. But there was also a large part of it that was fueled by other decisions that, I wasn't happy with the car either, or the brand. But regardless, I traded that in for a Volkswagen ID4. And of the three that I had up to that point, that was my favorite. That was my favorite car. It was not as good of an electric car as the Teslas were, but it was a far better car in terms of mobility, the fit and finish, how quiet it was, the amenities that were provided by that vehicle. And then my eye got caught by a Rivian one day when I was going to lunch. Most expensive lunch I'll ever have. I saw the Rivian. The delivery guy let me poke around in it, take some pictures. Sent the pictures to my wife. She said, "Are you looking at another car?" And I said, "No. Why would you think that?" And I went back to work and reserved my Rivian that day. My wife found out that I reserved it, and she was like, I think that car is too small. I think that truck is too small for a family." And I was like, "It's a truck. What are you talking about?" Come to find out, they're about Tacoma size, and she was right. Don't tell her I said that. So I started looking for a Ford Lightning, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to get it." Jim Farley has said they're 3 years out. They're ramping, stuff like that.
Oh man!
So, but I put a 150-mile radius out from where I live back in North Carolina, and I found a dealership in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. Motor Mile Ford. Great guys if anyone's looking. I don't know if they have any Lightnings right now, but those guys treated me so well. This was, again, at the time when everybody was marking prices up. They were to the sky. I called them. I said, what is my out the door price? It said MSRP, tax, title, fee, out the door. And I was like, great.
When was this? Can I just get like a calendar? What are we talking?
That was October of 2021.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
I don't really
remember. And so they did that for me, and I said, great, I'm coming to get it. And they said, we'll need $1,000 deposit, so I gave them that. Canceled my Rivian order, and then I drove up there the next day in my ID4 to pick it up, and drove it back from there. Been driving it ever since. It's the car I've had the most miles on since my Kia Soul that I had for 3 years. So I'm almost at the mileage that my Kia Soul had when I finally did trade it for the Tesla. But I've only had this just over a year or two. I forget the exact date. But yeah, there's 25,000 miles on it right now.
Your story totally took me down memory lane, because there was a chapter where I was also calling dealers in the middle of nowhere, hoping that they had a demo Lightning that they were just dying to get rid of. So I don't know about Joe and Jace, because they got their trucks earlier than me, but I fully relate and remember so vividly that chapter of like everybody wanted one and couldn't find one. And so I can't imagine the excitement when you struck jackpot there at, what did you, Motor Mile
Ford in Christiansburg, Virginia.
That's awesome.
Middle of nowhere. And I sold my ID4 to the Honda dealer across the street, and they asked, what are you going to buy? And I said, oh, I'm getting a Ford Lightning. And they're like, are you getting it in MSRP? I was like, I sure am. And they were like, well, we'll take you back over there. I was like, that's great. And they started driving me to their sister dealership. And on the way, the guy's like, I don't know how you managed to get MSRP on a Ford Lightning. We're marking everything up. And this is when it dawned on me. I'm like, I'm going to the dealership across the street. Do you mind turning around? We were like 4 or 5 miles back, so he had to turn around. The rest of the ride was awkward.
Of course. But
yeah, I mean, especially coming from an ID4, which had like a 0 to 60, and eventually, once I got in the Ford Lightning, I stepped on the gas as any person should. And that sealed it, man. Game over.
And just because I do feel like it informs our view on the Lightning and our experience, can you just give us a quick rundown of like what your spec is that you're driving every day of Lightning?
Yeah, so I got a Lariat standard range.
Nice.
And I'm a huge proponent of the standard range batteries. I think almost all people should be in them. We can get into that if you guys want. I think extended range should be reserved for
Joe.
But
if you're towing, there's an exception. I know, Joe, you tow giant trails.
Those are the exceptions,
That was my only reason.
Yeah, so if you're doing a lot of towing, if you're taking this truck 150 miles to a work site every day, obviously extended range is the way to go. Yeah. For people that do like myself, I take my son to daycare, go to work, get groceries, and step on the pedal at every red light.
Yeah,
the standard range is the way to go. So I have a Lariat range in stone gray metallic.
Ooh, the rare stone gray. Wow, I didn't even realize that.
I got the bed liner, and obviously blue cruise as well.
That's
so
awesome.
You're similar to me. So you have the Lariat standard range with option blue cruise, option pack, which is a really, really nice trim that supposedly will no longer exist. I hear rumors of. We'll see if that turns out to be true, but that is indeed what I'm hearing. So that'll be. We kind of have. You're good, Joe. We kind of hear like some mixed things. Yeah, it is kind of actually. It's getting like louder, but you're all right, Joe. You're all right.
Yeah, I heard the Flash is coming. The Lightning Flash. I know Chris Bowe posted that on Twitter. I saw that. That looks. If I were buying a truck today and that was available, that would be the spec I would go.
I think that's for all three of us.
Admittedly, we kind of touched on the Flash last week. It's one of the frustrating things I think about this era that we're in of EVs, where everything is a reservation model, and so you're trying to do everything 2 years in advance. Like I was thinking of this with the Rivians that just got announced. Like, okay, here's another $100 for it. I feel like we've all become conditioned to where we feel compelled, like we have to reserve these vehicles just in case our life changes, just in case we want one of the first shots at these vehicles. And it's like, sure, if you told Lightning buyers that the Flash was in the back of anyone's mind, who knows? But of course, I'm thrilled with my truck. That always is the disclaimer. I'm very happy with what I ended up with. But yeah, it's just interesting. I'd love to circle back to that talking point as EVs seem to be transitioning to that. Also want to give a shout out to Marty and Mac in the chat. Thanks for joining us so early on. And I got to say to Isaac, standard range gang,
Yeah.
I think That's my truck. It's about time we started tipping the scales a little bit around here. No pun intended.
Yeah.
So, Joe is dealing with some background noise, so you are clearly not in your basement. Do you want to just tell us where you're at right now?
No, I'm not broadcasting from the basement tonight. I am actually at EV Charging Expo out in Las Vegas. I got asked to speak on one of the customer panels here. So I am live streaming actually directly from the floor, which I will share with you now. We are. It's like basically an EV expo for chargers. There's a lot of charge companies here. Autel's down here over in the corner there. Penske is actually one of the bigger names that is here this week, and you know there's tons of booths here. So it all starts tomorrow. If you're in the Las Vegas area, definitely come down and see me. I speak Friday afternoon on the customer panel. So really cool to be down here. Really cool that they invited me, and I wanted to just showcase this because they brought me down out to Vegas here. So
Very cool.
Could you, I mean, I don't know. I know the expo starts tomorrow, so you might not have the answer, but can you connect the dots in my head why Penske is at an EV charging expo?
Yep. So Penske is going electric with a lot of their trucks. I've gotten a little bit of information here and there. I think this is one of their. I think they might be announcing a lot of stuff during this, but that they're going electric with their giant box trucks. They're putting DC fast chargers in at their depots and stuff so that they can get these trucks charged up. So they're one of the bigger sponsors of the event because of that.
And I guess my follow-up is like, what do you think are going to be your big talking points? You're on this panel, so like, can you kind of give us a little fraction of what you plan on sharing with the people at the expo?
Yeah, absolutely. So the contact that I have in the expo here said that last year they had this expo, they had all these panels, and it was all from EV charging companies' perspectives. There was never somebody sitting on a customer side going, well, this is what we want from a charging experience at a hotel, at a apartment complex, at whatever business that may want to put their chargers in. So they actually picked a bunch of customers. There's three of us, and then there's I think it's Emporia. One of the representatives from Emporia is on our panel as well. So it's a mix between us telling our story and how we use our chargers, whether it be DC fast chargers or level 2s, and then obviously the company that builds them. So really cool to sit down. We've actually already had a couple mock conversations just to try to figure out where we're going to go with the conversation. So
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty cool.
Well, and as a relatively new EV owner, I'm definitely the least experienced EV owner on this podcast right now. I will admit that level 2 is totally an afterthought for me. Like, as someone who road trips and stuff, I feel like even if you do your research, you're educated a lot on fast charging. And then I feel like the awareness around destination charging is significantly lower, at least like on my end. Jace, am I alone in this?
No, and I was going to say too, Joe, I think we live in Ohio, so level 2 just isn't really on the radar right now. Like, I know in California, you can go and you can find, let's say, a Blink charger or whatever that old company was, that has now, I think, been bought by Shell Recharge or something like that. But, you could go into a grocery store parking lot and find an L2 charger, right? And we just don't really seem to have that here in Ohio. Like, I don't go to, the local grocery store and find a level 2 or, it doesn't really exist here. We're still working on our level 3 infrastructure, right? So yeah. I just think, for us, it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really apply. We just don't see it often. So yeah, it's kind of an afterthought. I mean, I know there's some at the airport, but even so, there's like at Cleveland Hopkins, there's not that many. There might be a private sort of park and fly that has a couple, but it's just pretty limited.
I think it's actually an afterthought for not even just EV owners, but for businesses as well. For example, there's a casino that opened up 2 hours from me, and they put 4 level 2 stalls in. They never turned them on. They turned them into VIP parking. Yeah. So, I don't think they even see the benefit. And I wish they did, because when I charge somewhere, whether it's level 2 or whether it's level 3, my wallet is open. I'm going to buy. I'm going to do something, whether that's to kill time or because I'm actually thirsty or whatever. But I'm a sitting duck, and I'm going to enjoy myself while doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out because, like, around me, the way I think about level 2s is like if I pull up to an establishment and it's there, I'll use it, but it's nothing more than a pleasant surprise for me, which I think is kind of doing level 2s a disservice because it can truly, like, significantly improve a road trip if you have an overnight charge at a hotel. But it's like, I don't think, to your point about it taking a backseat from the business's perspective, like some hotels aren't even proactive about advertising that they have EV charging. And so, like, I'll go out of my way to try to book a hotel with a charger, can't find one, book a hotel, and then I show up and it's there. And I'm like, I would have booked this in the first place if I had known. So interesting little tangent there on level 2, but I just think as maybe I'm alone or maybe within the EV community, like you said, it's probably more of a regional thing, Jace.
Yeah, I think that has to do with a lot of it.
So I'm sorry,
while we've got Joe
I had some
here,
technical difficulties here.
You're good.
So with the
You're
level
good.
2, for me, like personally, I won't go to a hotel now without a level 2, like Marty said. Most of the hotels.com and stuff like that, they all have filters now for EV chargers at their hotels. That's a big thing for me. If I'm going to an event that's kind of far away, I'm hoping they have chargers. It would be nice to see that they had chargers, their level 2 chargers, while you're at the event. But like, yeah, I'm not going to on a road trip stop and charge at a level 2 unless I'm staying over at a hotel or
Right.
something. So that's really where level 2 really comes in and fills that gap of, well, I need a DC fast charger every time I stop.
But if I can poke a little deeper into the hotels.com example that you shared, what % of the time do you think either a hotel has a working charger and advertises it appropriately? And then what % of the time does it advertise a charger and then you get there and it's not working, or not all of them?
Or iced.
So I counter,
or ice, yeah.
Iced is something you're not going to be able to predict, but I actually counter when I search that with PlugShare to make sure they actually have one. When I went to Chicago last month, the hotels I was looking at out in Ohio, oh yeah, they got a fast charger here or a level 2 charger here, and I pull it up on PlugShare and there's nothing there. So,
So do you trust hotels.com? I would.
Not totally.
I would be lost.
Joe, I always double check just like you do with your trip planning, man. Like I always think ahead and double check that because exactly that is I found that some of them don't actually have them, but they have it listed that they do.
I mean, maybe they just have a regular wall outlet on the exterior of their building and they're calling that EV charging. Because, I mean, theoretically, you bring your mobile charger, but I hope that's not what they're doing.
Yeah. That's my last resort because I was worried that someone would just take the end of the charger, the plug that they can plug. Right. So I would do it if I have done it, actually. The last time I came up to Ohio was in my ID4 and I plugged into an outlet. I didn't sleep well that night. But in a pinch, they do work.
But the night before we powered that electric airplane across the Northeast, I did the same thing at the hotel that I got to. One of the other guys had his lightning plugged in, and I plugged mine in the same outlet. And I hope it's there when I wake up 5 hours.
But what's interesting is my primary fear wouldn't be, you guys enlightened me on this today, it wouldn't be somebody stealing my charger. It would be a hotel official saying, what the heck are you doing? Like, you can't
we ask
just
first.
plug in.
No. Yeah, always ask first. Don't just plug into any plug you see.
Okay.
For that exact reason. Like,
and they usually don't care?
No, they were fine at the hotel.
Okay.
I haven't had any tell me no.
Yeah, the few times I've had to ask, I'm going to be 100% honest, I don't know if they understood what I was asking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they just kind of blindly
they're like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you say, guy.
As long as you're staying here, keeping your reservation, they're probably like, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, so I'm going to segue a little bit because I have my own hotel EV charging horror story, if you will. You pull up, and this may be describing multiple people's experience. I pull up, and there are 2 nondescript black poles with LCD screens at the top. I don't recognize a brand of charger, so I'm like, do I plug my vehicle into this? You pull up, there's no instructions on the screen, so you go inside. He says, oh, you need to swipe this key card. He gives you the key card, and that worked with about 50% accuracy throughout my stay over that weekend. But he wanted me to go in and get the key card every time I arrived and came and went. So I would give that like a 5 out of 10. But Joe, go ahead.
I've had a hotel. I took my family out to Rochester. We went to the Children's Museum out there. We stayed at a hotel that had the same thing. We had to have a card, and you had to get it from the front desk every time. Well, didn't my 4-year-old decide to get to the...
I think we might be in the process of losing Joe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill his video just so he gets a chance to reset.
Yeah.
But I was trying to segue
Into
Joe's horror story from. I'm trying to segue, Joe, into your horror story of charging yesterday.
Yes. Sorry, this was working, by the way, before we went live.
It was working perfectly. Literally.
It was.
Hotel Wi-Fi. What can I do? So yes, so I flew out of Boston for this event, and I parked my truck at the ChargePoint chargers at the Boston airport. I got there, and they directed me to a different floor away from the chargers, and I stopped and I said, "Hey man, like I'm looking for a charger. I got to charge my truck." "Oh no, everything's full. Everything's full. We're not doing that." Well, I ended up sneaking out of wherever they sent me and going back up and finding the chargers, and they were open. There was one spot open. So I was able to pull the truck in, plug in, no problem at all. Now it's a shared 6 kilowatts, so me and the Tesla next to us, we're splitting 3 kilowatts. I'm gonna be gone for a couple days, so it's fine. It'll be fully charged by the time I get back. So it's charging, fairly slowly. I'm waiting for my flight. I get on the airplane. They close the doors. Don't I get a notification that the charger has fault from Ford Pass? So I pull up Ford Pass. It says something's wrong with the charger. Check the charger. I switch over to the ChargePoint app, and it's completely out. The network's completely shut down. You can't access anything. Yeah. So I had no control over the charger, and I'm stuck on an airplane on a tarmac, and I'm hoping my truck will charge at some point and get me back home. So, it was really, really nerve-wracking that, like, I'm at the whim of something that may or may not work. And I mean, I guess that's our everyday in the digital world. But just one simple error.
It wasn't a planned outage, was it?
Nope. ChargePoint actually has it on their Twitter feed. I actually pulled it up.
Is it back up?
It's back up today. Driver alert: our charging map is not currently directing drivers to chargers or able to remotely start a charge via the ChargePoint app. We sincerely apologize. We're working on to resolve the issue. Now, this was actually just featured on the Out of Spec podcast today as well. You could still start it with tap to charge on your mobile phone or an RFID. But I'm on an airplane. There's no option.
Yeah, and you were already charging, right? So I'm kind of surprised that even though you had already initiated that charge, that it stopped.
It stopped. It faulted for some reason, and I think once they fixed the issue, it actually restarted itself. By the time I landed in Vegas, 5 hours later, it was already charging again, and overnight it got up to 90% on its own. And I'm gonna finish the 100% the night before I get back, but. I could do that remotely through the Ford Pass app. It's just, restart it again. But I was worried that the session wouldn't start again, exactly like you said, Jace, because I wasn't there to scan the RFID card on it, and I couldn't do it from my phone like I normally can. So that was almost crippling if it didn't start back up.
Joe, did they send a push notification to your phone or anything? Like,
nope. No email, nothing. It was just
not an email. Just wow.
So I think that's
when I pulled the chart. Oh, I'm sorry. When I pulled the ChargePoint app open, it would say the network is down, it's unavailable. But that's all it said. It didn't tell me anything else. I was thinking it was airport Wi-Fi at first.
I feel like that's a huge miss. That because imagine someone's routing to a ChargePoint charger right now.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
They get there, like a 0%, and then that's it.
Well, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and probably guess that since everything was down, they probably had no ability to send a push notification either.
Yeah. So they were able to remotely start the chargers from their support team if you pulled in, but the app was completely toast.
And so just to confirm, the only way you knew that your charge had stopped was from your Ford Pass app.
Correct.
Yeah, I was talking to Joe about this before we went live, and I was like, we all have our complaints about level 3 charging. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like when you're on a road trip, you're basically standing there. Like, and if something goes wrong, you can troubleshoot, you can come out of the Walmart. level 2 the standard has to be even higher, because if it's a destination charger, odds are you are leaving your vehicle for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so when I heard this story, if you had asked me to bet my house on whether that charge point charger would spontaneously restart charging Joe's vehicle without him there, I would have bet my house that it would not. I am
was already
amazed.
planning a DC fast charger stop before I went home because of that. I did not think it would start again.
It is truly a miracle.
Maybe like the solution there, like I know Electrify America, I don't know what the problem was, right? I'm speculating, but maybe the solution there is to just free vend. When Electrify America loses communications back to wherever they are, Reston, Virginia, I think, they just give it to you for free. You know, I guarantee you they did not lose electricity at that parking garage. They should have just, you know, because you could strand.
Yeah, it was
And
just
so
what capability looked like.
So you're saying that in a way, it could be construed. I really want to choose my words carefully. Jace, I'm going to need your censorship here. Feel free to edit what I'm about to say. But in a way, it's like a greedy move, because the easy thing to do, based on what you're saying, Isaac, is to just let the charge flow for free until you get everything figured out. But because they couldn't like make sure that people continued paying for their charge, is why they said, like, we can't reinitiate. Like, can you elaborate, Isaac, on that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said be careful about the words you choose, because I would almost wager nobody at that would want to just say we're not going to give you electricity because we don't have the capabilities to take your money. I would put money on the fact that they can't do that. Yeah. They didn't set it up to be like that.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, that would, for me, if I worked there, that would be my next order of business would be, let's get a free vend mode working so this never happened again. So I don't think they're saying no, you can't charge because we can't bill you. It was, I'm sorry, I wish we could, we just can't.
Yeah.
So my charge was actually free because of where it is. They didn't charge on the charger. So that never crossed my mind. I didn't think of that because I knew it was a free charger. However, I'm actually scrolling through this while we were talking. It also knocked out their home chargers. I totally.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't like they're smart only because they're smart.
Yeah. I had a bunch of people on here saying my home charger was out.
See, that's why shout out to Grizzly Duo, man. Like we love our Grizzly Duo United chargers. Thank you. Like I for real, it's just a dumb charger. We plug it in, it works. There's nothing to it. I don't track anything on the app because it's just easier. Yeah. There's nothing to.
I have a Grizzly at home. Just the classic Avalanche dumb charger, just like this. But mine actually broke. It would never initiate with the car. It would always say it was handshaking. Green light was flashing. The Ford would say it was faulted, charge station faulted. But never did. And I called them up, and they walked me through the process. I had a new charger in my garage in 2 weeks. Everything was taken care of. They were so nice. They were great. I can't say enough good things about them.
Same.
Well, I know after last week's episode, we kind of said that one of our eventual topics would be we talked through our home charging solutions, and we just covered 2 of them. So let's just keep that ball rolling. Because, Jace, to your point, when I was shopping for a home EV charger, it's a crowded landscape, and it can be overwhelming for a first-time EV owner, because I'm being told that the truck is smart, and through the app I can control my charging, but then I'm shopping for chargers that also say that they're smart, and so I'm like, which app is going to be my solution? Do I want another app on my phone? Do I need both apps? So that's why I went with the Ford mobile charger. That's my dumb charger, and I just do everything through the Ford Pass app, and I've been thrilled ever since. I know there's a large faction of Ford Lightning owners that absolutely loathe the Ford mobile charger because of bad experiences, but funnily enough, my charger wasn't even meant to be my charger. It was just the one they had at the dealership. They were supposed to order me one, and they didn't, and they just gave me the one they had been charging the demo on, and I have had no problems. So,
ironically, you were when the mobile charger, you were 23, so the mobile charger is no longer included, correct?
I did have to pay $500 for it. Yes, thank you for reminding my wife.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to, so people understand though too that the 2022 did include a mobile charger. They changed that with 2023.
Yeah.
Most people probably, I'm assuming, opt for it. And it makes sense in a certain sense, especially if you were a higher trim, because you were essentially receiving 2 chargers, like we did as well. We got actually 3 chargers, 2 mobile chargers, 1 with each truck, and then obviously the Charge Station Pro. So and if you're a lot of people repurchase EVs, so you probably already have a charger. So I kind of get it a little bit. Tesla sort of did similar things and removed mobile chargers from there. So makes sense. But yeah, it's always interesting to see. We didn't really have a lot of chargers to choose from because we wanted a dual charger, one that could charge each truck at the same time. So really, it was like a Clipper Creek unit, the Grizzly Duo, and I think that was like it. We either had that or we would have had to put in 2 plugs and something that didn't make sense for us, at least financially, and we don't have enough room from the in the panel from the street, so we'd have had to update that. And the Grizzly Duo, for those who have 2 EVs, is like the perfect solution. I had a local guy ask on the local EV group the other day, like, what are you guys using for dual charger? I cannot shout out Grizzly Duo enough because it just splits that power from the same 1450. It's plenty quick. Like, we don't really, drive our trucks down to like 10% every day. So, the most we're using is 50% tops. And both trucks are, full by the next morning.
Can I just do a quick follow-up? How much does the Grizzly Duo cost?
I want to say like $699, $749-ish, like in that range.
It's in the 700 range because I was shopping for one for my wife.
Right around there.
That makes my $500 Ford mobile charger look like absolute garbo. At that price, all things relative.
No, I don't. No, I hear what you're saying. I think it's a great price for a great product. We've had like 0 issues with it. We had a little bit of a fault situation the other day, but I don't really know what that was. And we had a little issue with it before where I tweeted about it, where Electron outlet nearly like caught on fire. Realized that they installed a cheap outlet, should have looked. And so now that we're talking about it, that if I could give anybody the biggest advice on home EV charging is get either a Hubble or a Bryant outlet. I think Electron has a heavy duty 1450 that they just launched, but in my opinion, huge key. Make sure that you're spending the money on a nice either Hubble or Bryant outlet. Maybe the new Electron one but you will eventually have an issue with a cheaper 1450. You absolutely will. Ours was only installed for like a year and a half before it started to basically essentially melt. So it's important for sure.
Last fall on social media, I actually started noticing that trend. So a lot of Mach-E owners, a lot of Lightning owners were, hey, my plug keeps melting, or I lost power in my garage and I smelled smoke, and it turned out to be my charger.
Kyle Connor has had it, and Tom, I think, too, right?
Tom Malogny actually did a whole video on it on the State of Charge on his YouTube channel. Gotta plug Tom anytime I can because he's talking so much. Tom actually did a video. He actually went out to a Tesla owner's house whose charger actually did burn up. Or I'm sorry, his outlet did burn up, and went out and actually helped him set up a proper setup. So if you have a minute, go to State of Charge YouTube's channel and definitely take a look at that, because you need to be informed when you're setting this stuff up.
I'll be honest, I was informed. I'll be the first to say we were informed. I saw people on Twitter say, "Oh, don't have those Electron." I'm like, "Oh no, I know we paid money for a good one. I know we did. I looked at the bill, like we're good. I should have looked at the dang outlet, but I'm like, we paid a lot." I looked at the itemized receipt and I'm like, "We're fine. We got a good one." And then you just don't realize, you got to dig deep. When you
just because it costs money doesn't mean it's a decent one. You got to make sure it passes you.
And when you put them in your hand, you can feel the difference. Like there is a legitimate weight, material difference. You don't have to spend like $100 on the Hubble. If you don't want to do that, the Bryant is like $40 cheaper, and it's like literally the same exact outlet.
I need to go see what I have. I got mine installed in 2019 when I got my Model 3. Because obviously they gave the UMC at the time with the 240 and the 120. And I had severe range anxiety when I bought my Tesla. But the guy that came to put it in, he was done in 15 minutes. I said, how am I paying? And he said, I'll invoice you. And then he left, and I never got an invoice.
What's funny
Wow.
is mine did the
That's
same thing when I got my Ford Pro Charger finally, 2 weeks after I got the truck. He came back and he installed it for me, and he's like, all right, I'll send you an invoice. He sent it to me. I agreed to pay it on my phone, and it never got the actual credit card thing to put in. So
Wow, I wish that would have happened to us. That would have done.
Yeah, but Jace, you can't forget. I think we got a break on like our
We did.
Ohio EV
Tax.
registration.
Oh,
Yeah.
that too. And we took the tax credit for the Charger as well. I think it was like 30% or whatever.
you got Charger
could take
tax credits for your house?
Yeah, it's 30% from the federal government.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
You
Dang.
could have gotten it too, probably.
I didn't pay
It was
for
It's not
it.
ringing a bell for me.
And the installation wouldn't be covered.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was installation and Charger itself, I believe, was 30% for the federal government. We took it. I'm telling you. I think we got like $300 back. But yes, what did you say before that, Joe? The Ohio. Yeah, we got lucky. I don't want to talk too much about that because that's still the case.
Nice.
John Halkias just renewed the other day, and
nice.
They have not figured that out yet. Almost 2 years later.
So
Sweet, go renew now.
Yeah.
We did 3
early.
years on each truck because
that's smart.
Why not?
Saved us $800.
A few things. I need to update the Lightning Strikes Strike Zone drinking game. Viewers have to consume every time we mention Tom Malogny or Kyle Connor. Good luck with that.
That's a good one. I like that.
I want to give a shout out to Kevin who joined us in the chat, and then I also wanted to ask, for anybody watching, will you just put in the chat how are you guys charging at home? Because I don't think we have two of the same answers on this entire screen, so I'd love to kind of keep hearing the diverse choices that people are making for how to charge at home. Joe, did you say that your Ford Charge Station Pro, is that what you went with?
Yeah, it came with the truck when I got it.
Oh, that's right.
Originally,
okay.
Because I got the extended range lariat.
Do you have it at the full 80 amps, or you have it turned down?
I do have it at the full 80 amps. I got a dual pole breaker. It's a 100 amp breaker.
Nice.
Gotta have that 25% buffer. I learned so much when I was getting this thing installed.
Right, I know.
I had the electrician come out and he installed everything before the Pro Charger actually showed up, and he gave me a 1450 outlet to use for the time being. And then when the charger showed up, he came back and he'd never installed a hardwired charger before, so it was a little bit of a charge curve or a learning curve. But he figured it out, and it's been working perfectly since.
Nice.
So it looks like Kevin uses an Emporia wall charger.
Yep, nice.
And then, Isaac, did you ever say what you settled on after your Grizzly broke?
No, they sent another one, and I'm using that now.
Okay, there you go.
Because I was one of those nights I sold every one of my electric cars. I gave the charger that came with it. Because I thought if I was in their shoes in an electric car without a charger, I would be upset.
Like the mobile charger.
Yes.
Yeah,
correct,
nice.
yeah.
My worry would be like the dealer.
He's like, here's a free
that.
Grizzle E. Yeah. Keep it.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, I think we're at a point where we can transition into a very deep dive on something that I am very uneducated about. And it's part of the reason that Isaac joined us tonight. So I'm just going to kick it to Jace and Isaac, because Jace has been talking to me about, me and Joe in the text thread this week, about something called comma, like the punctuation, comma. And I have no understanding of what it is. And so I'm hoping that Jace and Isaac can enlighten me on that tonight. So I guess take it away.
Yeah, go for it, Isaac.
Yeah, so a lot of you are familiar with like Blue Cruise or Tesla's Autopilot, Tesla Full Self-Drive, all of the ADAS systems that are out there right now. But there is one company that I don't think a lot of people are aware of called Comma AI. And one of the really cool things about Comma AI is it works on cars at the moment. And it works by, you buy a device called the Comma 3X. I think right now they're having a sale for $1,000 if you buy a car harness. And that harness hooks into the camera slot of your ADAS system. And then basically the Comma 3X replaces the camera. Because the Comma 3X has 3 cameras on it. There's 2 cameras on the back. One is a far view camera, and one is a wide view camera. And then the third camera is a driver facing camera to do driver monitoring. And it's also a wide view camera. So they have, I think it's like I think it's like 358-degree view, so they can see almost completely around the car. Very small amount at the A pillars that they can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So it replaces that camera, replaces it with two, forward-seeing cameras, and that takes the images, runs it through a model that Comma trains at their, where they are in San Diego, California, and basically it's the same way that your current ADAS does, in the sense that it'll maneuver you laterally in the lane, so it'll move your steering wheel left and right. And then they've recently released something in experimental mode, which is longitudinal control, which will control the gas and the brake for your vehicle as well, based on what the cameras are seeing and what it thinks a human would do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that option for Comma to decide to stop and go for you, or you can fall back and let your vehicle's longitudinal control take over. So if for some just want a super chill drive, I can toggle it off, and Ford will be responsible for parsing that information that's coming from the camera, and deciding whether it's going to stop or accelerate or something like that. So and a lot of cars, not all of them, it just depends on the make and the support that it's gotten, will also take the radar information and parse the radar information and use that in assistance with the visual control to decide how it's going to control the longitudinal controls there. So like I said, supports over 250 cars. Ford, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is their newest supported brand. So they support the Lariat's Maverick, hybrid and non-hybrid, any of the newer F-150s that have Blue Cruise. Some of the F-150s that do not have Blue Cruise, you do have to do manual modifications to enable like radar control and adaptive cruise control. And then a lot of the like Ford Explorers, some of the Ford Edge. So a lot of the makes that have been made since they started putting out their own ADAS system are supported as well. So yeah, you buy that, you hook up the harness. There, the harness is a little tricky in both the Mach-E and the Lightning because of where the IPMA, which is Image Processing Module A, that's what's responsible for your forward-facing camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the trunk. So Ford routed a harness from the front of the Mach-E all the way to the back of the Mach-E. And then for the Lightning, it's in the footwell, tucked way up there. So you've got to install the harness, and then you mount the device here for 48 hours, and then you install OpenPilot, which is a completely open source ADAS system, and you're good to go. You have options to toggle on certain settings and stuff like that. But
so I guess my first question would be, you've got a Lariat Lightning. So that did come with Blue Cruise, or?
Yes. Yep.
So just to take the place of an ignorant viewer, that an uneducated viewer, what's the difference with Comma? What would compel you to do this on your truck if you've already got Blue Cruise equipped?
Yeah, so there's two major things. Number one, I wasn't a huge fan of when I would go into certain curves on the interstate and Ford would say, put your hands back on the wheel. It never made sense because it still controlled the vehicle. They just wanted my hands on the wheel. I didn't have to nudge or anything like that, just hands on the wheel. Number two, Blue Cruise is not free. Blue Cruise will charge you, I don't remember the price. I think it's going to be $800 per year.
If you do the trial, it's $800 a year, I believe. We could possibly, we could, or 75 a month. Yeah, we could possibly get an offer if you already had Blue Cruise. They've done that for Mach-E. We'll see exactly what they do. I think they brought it down to I want to say $600 a year. If you already previously owned Blue Cruise and you're re-upping, I believe that was the deal. But yes, it will be paid. And new 2024s only have a 90-day trial.
Okay, so new 2024s only have a 90-day trial, but most Lightning owners that have a capable vehicle are in a free trial right now. What was it, 3 years?
Yes, correct. As of 2022 model year all the way through 2023 model year, you would have gotten a 3-year trial, correct?
So Comma
I still have
is
2 more years. Well, yeah, 2 and a little less, but yeah.
so comma kind of emerges at this moment. I shouldn't say emerges. I don't know how long they've been around, but for a Ford owner, because they're a newly supported brand, emerges as an alternative without that $800 price tag attached.
Yeah, I wouldn't say supported necessarily. I mean, comma supports Ford. I'm not sure
Right.
it's necessarily the other way around. I want to be clear
Right.
about that. In no way do we necessarily recommend that you do this. I'll be sticking to Blue Cruise myself, but yeah, it's an option that exists out there. For folks that want to take the extra step and try something new. But yeah, I do want to make that clear that it's not necessarily supported or really even well, it's definitely not recommended by Ford, but
Yeah.
they are, it is something I'm sure they're aware of, and it's a cool thing. I love that it's open source, that anybody can see all the code and really kind of what makes it tick.
What's crazy to me is that like we're moving into a space where, I mean, most of our vehicles are software based vehicles, so that's going to open this kind of stuff up for almost every vehicle. I mean, it's all digital. It's all, we were talking about that earlier, the digital age. And this opens a lot of opportunity for new technologies to be developed. I think, Isaac, you mentioned it before we started this, that this is has AI integrated into it as well.
Yeah. So the way, like I said, the way the device decides how to drive is it takes the images, compresses them down, and runs that through a model that's been trained on previous driving data. The whole goal of Comma AI is to they want to do two things: make driving chill, and they want to do an end-to-end approach, which means that they want the vehicle to drive as a human would. Meaning it's going to go around certain objects, or if it sees cones in the street, it's going to start to slow down. It's going to make those human-based decisions. But yeah, kind of, and I'll circle back to the other points I was going to make on why this was an option for me. But the open source thing is good. But to Jace's point, if you don't know what you're looking at, stick to the supported Comma AI Open Pilot repository only. OpenAI is great if you know what you're doing. It could have bad actors though. Heavily involved in the development community, and I would say anybody that's actually trying to give you some software to run, they do act in good spirits, but I don't want to say that everybody will. That is certainly not the case for a person acting in any capacity for anything in the world. So just be smart about what you install if you guys do decide to do this. But back to your point about why I decided to do it. So I said originally 3. And there's more than that. So the first one was open source. The second was the cost. The third was the ability to take this to any other vehicle that I decide to go to. So for some reason, I decide that I want to get into a Ford Explorer tomorrow. I just take it off my dash and stick it on the new one, and it's going to come with me. I'm not out any money or anything like that. Or the transfer makes entirely. If I decide to go to Toyota for some reason, then that can come with me too. And one of the last big things is Comma is really big on not being secretive. Whatever they're doing, they're building in open. So the new models that they come out with, they tell you what they're trying to address. They tell you what they're trying to do with the software. So if tomorrow they release a new model, I can go out and test that, and I know exactly what they were trying to address, so I can give them feedback to say like, hey, this doesn't do what you set out to do, or like this exceeded my expectations. The updates with Blue Cruise, we know that we're going to get lane changes with 1.4, and we're going to get scooting over in the lane for like big semis and stuff like that. But we don't beyond that. So I like the transparency that the company provides when they do that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think this is part of, you can tell it feels like a sticky conversation because that's just the chapter of automated driving that we're in right now. And part of a bigger conversation, we talked offline a little bit about like, there was a YouTube video this week about the perks of the Mustang Mach-E and the Blue Cruise implementation there. And that sparked a very heated response throughout the Twitter automated driving community. We'll just leave it at that.
I think you bring up a good point though, Joe, that it is a sticky conversation. There is a lot of it's a very growing industry, right? We're in a period of exceptional growth, whether it be Tesla or otherwise, right? And I think that there's a lot of misinformation about this topic. I put out a tweet earlier this week, and I've seen this from really day one of Blue Cruise, that a lot of not just Tesla fans, but really other, EV fans, or even just, ADAS fans, whatever you want to say, don't really understand the difference, that when you lose, when you deactivate Blue Cruise, you're going back to really a hands-on mode. You're not, just doesn't deactivate out of nowhere, 99% of the time, unless, something crazy happens, like lose all lines, or, snows, bad conditions, something like that. Your sensor, you're going down to the hands-free mode, and which is basically essentially like an autopilot, equivalent. So I see a lot of people, conflate Blue Cruise with FSD, and I think they're very different psychologically and foundationally, right? Like, I've seen some people say, well, FSD has level 5 potential, Blue Cruise doesn't. And while they may be right, I'm not sure I would necessarily put both of those in that basket. FSD has kind of, gone a different route in the way that Tesla has decided to test their network. They use the public, for better or for worse, it's out there getting millions and millions of miles every, let's say year, right? Blue Cruise, it's very similar, but Blue Cruise has a very narrow, niche window that they're looking to provide, their drivers. So it's difficult to really compare the two, but I see it done all the time, and I'm fairly sure is exactly the right approach. And so I try to do my best to kind of explain to people really what Blue Cruise is, but more importantly, what Blue Cruise isn't. And I think that is a big distinction when it not only the software itself, but also the automaker, the OEM. Each OEM has their own feelings on how it should be done, and I do believe that Tesla and Ford's philosophies are a little bit different on that. In fact, I know they are, based on what we've seen. I'm not saying that either is right or wrong. I do prefer a certain one, but it's up to each their own. And Tesla's, to their interpretation, doing it within the boundary of the law, that's their interpretation of what they've decided to do. So, I think what I've just tried to do is make it clear to people what Blue Cruise is, what Blue Cruise isn't, what Ford's saying Blue Cruise delivers, and what Ford is saying Blue Cruise, doesn't deliver. But there is a difference between Blue Cruise and adaptive cruise. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier, but like Tesla and Ford are all working towards that level 3, assisted driving, where it can.
And let's be clear, all those systems are currently level 2. Comma's the same way.
Correct.
I'm not sure we necessarily brought that up. Yeah, I know we did earlier, but I want to make that clear to everybody. All these systems that we are currently talking about are level 2. I do think that caused quite a stir this week. But I do believe that a lot of the people that commented on what they commented on have held their beliefs for quite a long time. I know Zach, made some comments, and Zach is a 3 times purchaser of FSD. He knows very well what it does and what it doesn't do, and what he was promised and what he, thought would come of it. So, again, different philosophies, very different philosophies on really fundamental, issues.
Yeah, and to that point, and I want to make this as abundantly clear as I can. I know Jace just said it, but every ADAS system that is out there right now is level 2,
except for Mercedes, but in very, very, very limited circumstances. But yes.
And George Hotz at his latest Comic-Con, he's the founder of Comma AI. He's the president right now, but he has told people, if you are not going to pay attention, if you are not going to use this device responsibly and as intended, he does not want you as a customer. It is of the utmost importance that every person realizes that regardless of what is being used on the road, we are not at level 5. And for those who don't know, level 2 versus level 5, what that really means is you are still liable for every action that vehicle takes, whether that going and knocking somebody's mailbox off, or it's something far worse. God forbid that ever happens. You are responsible. So, And I think that's my biggest problem with a few other ADAS systems, mainly Tesla's full self-driving, is just the nomenclature that surrounds it, right?
Yeah.
Something else to make it abundantly clear that this is an assisted driving system and not a complete replacement for a driver, I might feel differently about that. But to that point, the Comma can do a lot of the same things that Tesla full self-driving can do, with the caveat that not every car is able to do that. There are some limitations. Like I said, right out of the box, the Lightning and the Mach-E's, they don't make full right-hand, left-hand turns. That's not to say that they ever will or they ever won't. Just that out of they don't do that.
That has been fixed quite a bit in 1.3, by the way. I took some pretty sharp curves in Detroit, and I was like, whoa. So there has been some revisions there. I also really quickly, though, do want to make clear that we have to mention in this conversation, I can't help but mention it, is driver monitoring. So, we've seen a lot of talks about this recently. Well, if Ford can have hands-free driving, why can't Tesla? Why can't maybe some others as well? And there's a lot of confusion on that exact, aspect. Ford uses not only cameras, they also have an IR sensor. So they watch your literal eyes. I know some people don't believe it. I've seen people be like, no, that doesn't happen. I'm like, yes, it really does happen. Like, you can see the IR sensors flash when you take a camera, up to it. So it definitely does happen. And, driver monitoring is something that, is very important. And, it does differ between the brands. It really does. And one thing that, comes, firsthand is that the IR sensor and the camera monitoring are working in tandem. Other brands do not have that. Some do, some don't. But that is just, really the lay of the land right now. The ones that have hands-free, for the most part, use an IR sensor as well as camera.
Yeah.
Same with GM.
Comma is that way as well. And driver monitoring is on from the minute you activate, from the minute you deactivate. And there are some ways to even keep driver monitoring enabled when the ADAS system is not enabled. So that way, you're being safe.
Isaac, I do have a question. I know Ford Blue Cruise, if you do get in an accident while under Blue Cruise, it does record everything it had on camera into the black box of the truck. Does Comma do something similar?
Yes. So that is a good point to bring up. So the Comma is also a 358, like I said, we'll just round up 360-degree dash cam. The routes, the videos get uploaded to a service that Comma has in low resolution, but the high resolution can also be uploaded. In the event that you do get in an accident, the videos are also on the device itself, and you can take that home and you can pull them off. So that is something that is available.
I do want to get to Justin's question real quick in the comments. So Blue Cruise pricing, it was not announced when we first got our trucks. This was a conversation that kind of popped up, I want to say middle of last year, end of summer-ish. Ford announced that they, let's just start from the beginning. Ford has been quite clear that they view Blue Cruise as a moneymaker, right? They want to make money on Blue Cruise. They've made big hires to get that done. They've publicly they've said they've increased their testing from, I think they were sending out a quarterly release, and now they're sending out weekly releases. Sammy is actually the guy who runs Blue Cruise. Very impressive guy. If you haven't watched anything on him, I highly suggest that you do. He's got a lot of great wisdom to share. So yeah, pricing was not announced when we first were looking at our trucks, Justin. It was talked about much later in the summer. Like I said, Ford views Blue Cruise as a moneymaker. Can't blame them. I've been using it every day since we've owned our Lightnings. It's become that almost paramount, not just on road trips, but also literally to drive 20 minutes across town. I used it today. I just naturally kind of go into it, and so pricing was released. There was some backlash. I mean, that's just the honest truth of it. There was definitely some backlash on the pricing. I think if Ford continues to iterate and they bring out better and better features, I would absolutely, we would definitely be re-upping, so to speak, repurchasing it. But I think, a lot remains to be seen. I know some people are like, I'm fine with adaptive, adaptive with lane centering is great for me. That's great. But in my opinion, Blue Cruise is absolutely worth it. But yes, that is kind of when pricing came out, and there will be a subscription, $75 a month. They did, like I said, they did receive some backlash. Maybe is the pricing a little bit fluid? Perhaps. I don't really know. But I do, they did offer some Mach-E folks who had the 3-year trial a discounted, subscription or year as well.
Well, a quick question I'm going to lob. Quick comment. You mentioned, just sticking with adaptive cruise and lane centering, and then hopefully that gives you some fraction of the, experience. Obviously, still engaged with the road. But, I mean, even as an XLT owner, I'm brave enough to say, like, when I saw that I had lane centering, I was like, yeah, let's give this a shot. And you do it, and you take your hands off the wheel, and it only takes a few hundred feet to realize this is not doing much for you. So, like, obviously, Blue Cruise, to your point, Jace, is doing way beyond. It's, they're apples and oranges. My question, though, is when you bought the truck, I'm kind of building on Justin's question here. Did they tell you were getting a 3-year free trial of Blue Cruise, and like then
it's on the window sticker?
So the subtext is you're getting it for free for 3 years. After that, we cannot make you any guarantees about what it will cost you.
At the time, yes.
And to that point, it's not actually free. You pay for it in the purchase price. That's how my window sticker was, at least. I don't know about yours.
Well, we paid for the option to get Blue Cruise.
Okay.
We paid for option to have,
my wife,
because we didn't have the pack. We didn't have the tech pack. So, yeah, it's a little bit different with the Mach-E.
Yeah, when we ordered the Mach-E, it had it separately listed that you're paying $2,100 for Blue
Correct.
Cruise. And I think that's what Isaac's talking about. That's how
Isaac bought his back you bought yours in 2022, right? So we paid because we had standard range. We're the only trim that could pay to get, not to pay to get Blue Cruise, but we paid for the tech pack, which gave us pack, phone as a key, and Blue Cruise. So we kind of paid for that, not necessarily Blue Cruise itself, but yes, now the standard Ranger area is apparently not going to exist. So now with Flash, you would have the hardware, not have to pay for it at all, but you would be paying the $2,100 to get beyond the 90-day trial.
And Justin asked again there.
Yeah.
Justin asked again, what more than hands-free? So, I mean, what you actually do lose is the hands-free part. You do have to keep your hands on at all times.
And it is a different software stack, to my knowledge. People talk about that a lot with FSD and Autopilot. I believe it is the same with Blue Cruise. So, Blue Cruise is a totally different. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that this is the case, that they are completely separate stacks. So, you'll see very different behavior between Blue Cruise and adaptive cruise with lane centering. Yes, you do lose hands-free, but you also lose some capabilities. It may not be necessarily noticeable to you, oh, this was it, but in my opinion, adaptive ping pongs a little bit more. Blue Cruise has started to nail down, even I still have 1.0 and it's still better than it was before. I don't know exactly how they've done that, but there have been some alert OTAs, and some other things that they have done to kind of still make the system better, even though I'm still on 1.0. So you do lose hands-free, but you also do lose some other abilities, let's say, too, not necessarily noticeable to you unless you could put them next to each other, but yes.
And to piggyback off what you were saying, Jace, in Ford's defense for charging, I mean, they're putting money into the system. They're not just, here's the system, now you have to pay for it. They're continuously upgrading it and updating it and trying to make it better, as is Tesla. They're doing the same thing. So charging for something that they're putting money into, it's a product. It's a separate product, really.
And I think vast majority of people will just lump that into the loan. I really do. If you're a fan of Blue Cruise, you love it. You're re-upping, you're repurchasing a Ford EV. I wouldn't go any other way about it. I mean, I would just put it in the loan. What's going to add $20 a month, maybe 25. I don't know, depending on your loan terms, but you're talking pennies comparative to paying the subscription or yearly.
Wait, so just to clarify, you have an option moving forward. When you buy a Lightning, you're going to have an option to just pay one flat fee up front.
$2,100. Correct. You can pay $2,100. You can pay $800 a year. I think it is $800 a year, or you can pay $75 a month.
But
I thought that was only for 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's true as well.
Yeah, only for 3 years. Yes, you would have $2,100 for 3 years, and then you would have to. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't just get it. Yeah.
So you're saying for that first $2,100, most people will no-brainer lump it in with your loan, and it won't affect your monthly payment a lot. But then 3 years down the line, you would pay $2,100.
Now, I will say I saw a Lincoln Nautilus the other day, and it looks like, I believe with like the reserve trimming up and maybe one more higher, you get 4 years of Blue Cruise. I thought that was very interesting. That is only a Lincoln thing only, but I just found that interesting that they give you 1 extra year on the Nautilus and not on the Mach-E or Lightning. But yeah, interesting.
And kind of while we're talking about this pricing, that's one of the main things that actually drove me to pick up Comma was I don't have a lot of interstates where I live. You know, so 98% of all of my driving is in the city. And by the city, I mean it's small. It takes 15 minutes to get from one end to the other. And so Blue Cruise adds almost zero value to me, even for the few road trips I do take a year. But Comma being able to be hands-free on all roads at all times because the driver monitoring is active always, that was a huge plus for me as a consumer. And then being able to get those updates quickly. They put out builds every single night to update OpenPilot. The team in California, I'm able to talk directly to this team. I can ask them questions. I can ask, anybody else that's been working on the project, I can ask them questions, and they're always more than willing to help. So that was a huge cost benefit for me, was I can go hands-free on my commute to work, whereas I could not do that before.
It sort of goes into Justin's comment too. Like, updates need to come quickly if you're actively subscribed, and I agree with that. I'll be honest. I don't think Ford has been quick enough with the Blue Cruise updates. We're in a little bit of a different territory right now, only because nobody's really paying for Blue Cruise. Perhaps newer Mustang Mach-E owners, but they already, chances are, have 1.2 or 1.3 because it's been given to them from the factory. So they are using auto lane change already. So I agree. It's definitely something that I agree the updates need to come quicker if you're subscribed. I think Ford knows this. I've delivered the feedback that we own two Ford EVs, both with Blue Cruise. So if we paid monthly, that's 75 times 2 a month. Like, that's expensive, very expensive.
And at the same time, though, Jace, you want to make sure that the software that's coming over to you is safe and very tested. And I think that's why they've slowed the updates on it right now. So I'd rather have from a safety standpoint, with 2 small kids in the back, I'd rather know that it's coming across and it's safe than a faster update, to be honest.
I completely agree with that sense. I will say with Ford, we're in Lightning specifically, we're in a little bit of a unique landscape right now because it's good problems and bad problems. I'd say the good problem is that Ford iterated so quickly. They wanted to give us 1.3, but really 1.2, but then 1.3 came so quickly, and then 1.4 came so quickly that it really turned into, we're going to move, you to a different version. So, I think things are moving quickly, and I think that's good. It's just a matter of, when are we kind of, going to actually see the benefits of it. Now, I will say, though, that Ford could have said, hey, the update's ready. Go to your dealer. They'll give it to you right away. You can have it. And Ford is, honestly, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I'm just guessing that they've actually delayed it because they want it to be an OTA release. They want it to be not only just an OTA release, I should say a seamless OTA release. They want to make sure that it goes through perfectly, that we're not having cars, get stuck, in certain modes, like that this goes smoothly. And yes, Justin, I saw your comment. Yes, it was worded a bit differently on the Windows sticker. Originally, it was Active 2.0, which gave you the clue that you have Blue Cruise. The other one was called Assist 2.0, and basically that meant that you have Copilot 360. It is confusing. I don't really think it was necessarily sneaky on Ford's part, but it was more of it was kind of fluid where they were with the name scheming. Like they've kind of moved away from Copilot 360. I think it was very confusing. And they did the same with Lincoln. They called it Active Glide. Now it's called Blue Cruise. So I think the naming schemes are kind of were kind of fluid, and they're now really trying to consolidate so that people really understand what they're buying. Because I dealt with a lot of early Ford Lightning owners who were like, I have assist, I have active. What does this even mean? Like, I'm confused.
Oh my God.
And it was a lot.
And something I want to piggyback off of on that is Ford has delivered on everything that they said they were going to deliver for Blue Cruise when they announced it. Hands-free driving on pre-mapped highways.
Yep.
And they nailed that from right out of the gate. Once it was available, that was exactly. And you paid for that, and you were like, okay, I'm happy with this, right? Not every ADAS is like that. And so when people, kind of try to break down Blue Cruise or try to say that one is better than the other, I paid for what I got what I thought I was.
Bingo. There was no false promises. I think that's the huge part overall in general with Ford. What inspired me as a customer and also becoming closer with Ford as a brand, it's an under promise over deliver. That is Ford's like go-to. I've noticed it with just about anything dealing with Ford, whether it's
the NACS
not
adapters.
not even just the products too, but the people that you get to meet and that you experience. Like, it's just, they're all so kind. And I just really think that Ford really, really, really wants to push safety first and making sure that the customer understands what they're offering and what they're not offering.
Yeah. And Kama also takes a stance of do not buy our product for promise of what could be capable in the future. They're very clear about what it does right now, and you should buy it for that point.
Never buy a product with a promise from the future. That's like
the MKBHD golden rule.
Yeah, never do it. Unless you have like full trust or the guy that's in charge of engineering, maybe then. But other than that, nah.
Yeah. So a lot of things to unpack there. I remember the YouTube videos I was trying to make before I got my truck, and I was doing like one of them was a trim breakdown and all the differences between all the trims.
I watched that one.
Trying to, I hope you learned at least one thing, Joe. But trying to parse through the differences between Copilot 360 Active and 2.0, and it was a headache. So thank you, Ford, for rebranding those. I wrote in my notes when my keyboard was really loud, I was writing something super not important, and it was that I want to buy the shirt that says "Make Driving Chill." Thank you, Isaac. I hope they have that on the. Nice. I hope they have that on the Kama website. If they do, I'll be purchasing it tonight. But it is also, this is the interesting part for me, is to hear how quickly there's a bunch of different EV communities on the internet, and we're familiar with them, and it's so interesting to see our community start getting into the nitty gritty of ADAS to the level like I've seen all these conversations amongst Tesla fans about FSD and autopilot and all that. And that jargon, I'm like, I have to become one of those people almost now to that level with Ford's Blue Cruise, the updates 1.3 and this and that and the desk. It's just so interesting to see that our community is going to have to shift that way and educate themselves on this if it's going to be it's already part of our vehicle, not mine.
And remember, ICE owners are experiencing Blue Cruise too. So that's a totally different thing that a lot of people don't think about, is that Ford supports so many vehicles. Like, I just don't think people understand. And vehicles that are not available in the United States, I'm not saying necessarily Blue Cruise, because Blue Cruise is only available, I think, in London or soon to be Norway maybe, and the United States. So we don't have a lot of locales that we're speaking, but neither does FSD really, for that matter. So I think actually technically Blue Cruise is more available in more places than FSD at this moment. Or maybe they're tied. Does Canada have FSD? Does Canada have FSD?
I thought Canada had Blue Cruise. Does it not?
Oh, maybe they have. So yeah, then technically, I guess Blue Cruise would be available in more places when you add London, and I think Germany soon too. So there's going to be more joining. But I think that is key. That Ford supports a lot of vehicles, like and Blue Cruise is going through a huge growth. Ford, I believe added it now to the Explorer. I'm sure it'll probably be added to the Expedition. We've seen it on the Lincoln Nautilus now. There's a huge expansion going on, and we're not just talking EVs. We're talking ICE as well. ICE F-150 has had it, I think, since 2022 model years. So we have a lot of other, vehicles that are actively using Blue Cruise that a lot of people don't really think about. But also different form factors. We see that. Good. Jim just confirmed. Yes, Canada has Blue Cruise. So, but we've also seen that Cybertruck launched without autopilot or FSD. So
yeah, Kyle mentions that in the video.
Yeah, I've always been impressed that Ford launched Blue Cruise so quickly on a different form factor vehicle, because Blue Cruise behaves very differently on a Mach-E than it does on an F-150 Lightning. The wind alone is a totally different beast. When you drive the Mach-E,
wind sail.
Yeah, when you drive the Mach-E with Blue Cruise and you drive the Lightning with Blue Cruise, you can feel those differences. The micro adjustments that the Lightning has to make are much more extensive than the Mach-E seems to have to. So, I think that's something that a lot of people have to remember too. And a lot of people just in the EV world, we don't really think about ICE much, but I come from a solid ICE background, as I'm sure a lot of us do, but specifically an ICE F-150 background. And I've sort of seen what has happened from 2018 to 2024, and the growth in just F-150 alone is it's crazy. But we have to remember that there's a lot of nameplates and a lot of other powertrains that Ford is supporting.
And it's not just an EV thing. That's what Ford has done now. It's not just a FSD just for Tesla. However, Blue Cruise is no longer just for EV. Which is really beneficial, to be honest.
There'll be more ICE cars with Blue Cruise in the next 2 years than there will be EVs. That's just the way the numbers roll. That's the way that it's going to happen. If Explorer
like more models or more cars on the road?
More cars on the road, probably all of the above. You'll have, it probably is the case now with ICE F-150. You have it's Lariat and up, and every I think it's within reason, Lariat and up, most of them have Blue Cruise optioned. So you add Explorer to that, Expedition to that, if they go all in and add like Bronco to that, you're really getting the territory, where a lot of vehicles are having Blue Cruise. And I think that just shows confidence in the product. I really do. I don't think Ford go out there and add Blue Cruise to their most profitable ICE vehicle, aka F-150, if they didn't believe in the product.
Yeah, if this was some little test thing that they didn't really think was going to survive, they would not intertwine it into their most popular selling vehicle. That's a great point, Jace. So just to circle back, I have one last topic to wrap up, but I just want to give a shout out to Isaac, because you have opened my eyes to something that even as a 10-month Lightning owner, I did not know existed. And I do think it's an exciting option for those of us that don't have Blue Cruise equipped vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely something I'm going to be looking into. So thank you for sharing that option with us.
And real quick, I do want to say just a couple things. Number one, Ford does not endorse or suggest that you run out and go do this. I don't suggest that you run out and go do this. Nobody on this podcast does. Do your research, make your own choices. If you have questions, DM me on Twitter. I will spend all night talking about this with you. But please, for the love of God, make an informed decision on what you're going to do. You are
Isaac, what's your Twitter handle?
I'm trying to put it in the chat.
Yeah, so the Lightnings weigh a lot, almost 4 tons. Do not, run out and go put something that's going to control a 4-ton vehicle almost, and just do some crazy things with it. So that's one of the points I wanted to make. And then the other one is this is a hard problem to solve. Self-driving cars are a hard problem to solve. Now that I've been on the development side of it, I knew they were hard, but to Jace's point, supporting all of these configurations, Comma makes one product, or two. They make the Comma 3X and all the accessories to support it. But they also produce OpenPilot, and that OpenPilot runs on 250 cars. And for the most part, all of those have a very positive experience. So, you know, props to the people that do this, whether that's at Tesla, Ford, or any other OEM doing ADAS systems. You know, they're really doing such a good job. So don't get upset at the products that aren't delivering where they are. Get upset at the people that are promising things that won't eventually come to fruition, or won't come to fruition while you own the car.
And here's what I tell people: go try it. Go try them. Like, literally go try them. Have a friend that has a Mach-E, a Lightning, or a Model X, or whatever it is. You know, like, I see so many people commenting on Blue Cruise or even FSD Autopilot that just, to be honest, don't really know what they're talking about. And you can tell because they haven't used the systems, because there's certain things that they say where you can just tell, I can tell you haven't used it. You know? So,
just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. I mean, when I put that tweet out earlier this week that said, you know, a lot of Tesla folks just don't understand that, you know, that we don't just lose ADAS when Blue Cruise, you know, disengages. We just go back to a hands-free, you know, or a hands-on mode. So, you know, and I had a few people respond that they were like, oh my gosh, I learned something new today. You know, I've been a huge EV fan, and I've probably tweeted out the same thing like 3 or 4 times in the last, 3 or 4 years. But the more that you just, try to inform people, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, there are things that I don't know about FSD and that I don't know about Autopilot. But my biggest thing is, if you're commenting on it, go use it, go try it out. That's the best way to be an informed person. I like to hear from all sides. I like to use them all. And I think that is truly the best way. And we're all on the same team. We are all on the same team. So we're all looking for safe roads. I think that's most important.
And just one more thing, sorry, about the safety. Comma also, even though they don't produce a car, they do subscribe and meet all ISO standards that are required for ADAS systems. So a tested system. They do all of their own tests on the cars as well to make sure that you always are able to gain control of your car. This isn't something that somebody set up in a backyard. They have a legal team. They have, all of the nuts and bolts in a row to make sure that this is a safe product for its users, provided you stay within the limits of how they told you. It's level 2. Pay attention.
And to answer Justin's question, no, correct. Comma AI is not just like a turnkey thing. Like, you have to buy a device, download OpenPilot, and then do some, installation yourself as well. So it's not a turnkey thing. And again, not really supported, whatsoever, and not recommended by us, but a very, very cool system that is an alternative to the folks that, want to, that's important to them.
Yeah. And so, okay, this is our low-key wrap-up segment. How did all 3 of us forget to put this in the show notes? Ford unveiled another EV demonstrator. I was just typing away on my keyboard to pull up a picture. So Long MacArthur, I'm looking at their Instagram post right now. The Super Cobra Jet 1800 EV will be in Pomona, California this weekend. So have you guys seen it? What do you think? How does it look? What are expectations? What's your gut reaction?
I saw it when Ford Performance put it on Facebook. So I kind of they do Facebook posts before they put on Twitter. So I got a quick little preview real quick on Facebook, and that's when I tweeted it out. And I love it. Jim has talked about a lot that in NHRA, they need fast, what did the exact use? Fast, not dispatch, but fast, like they get rid of the energy really fast.
Discharge.
Displacement?
Thank you. Discharge. Thank you. Okay. Fast discharge is a thing that NHRA uses in combo with their ICE engines. And so Ford has learned a lot from that. And I think to now apply that to an all EV drag demonstrator, I think it's sick. I mean, I think it's the perfect, that thing's going to freaking fly. Like, I know it's you're not going to hear, it's not as much as maybe a visceral experience, and I think that is key a lot of the time to drag racing, as somebody who grew up with a dad that drag raced and an uncle, and the noise is integral, right? But the speed is gonna I think people are just gonna be wow, because I don't think in that realm a lot of people don't necessarily get it, and I think it's a really cool way that Ford can showcase new tech that in a really cool fashion, just like switchgear. I think it's a real niche sort of cool way for Ford to be able to showcase, what's possible, but also like educate people. Like that's the most important thing. Like educate people who wouldn't have normally seen an EV, right? And Ford does a really good job at, with the graphics and, they make it cool. It's not just like a little Prius going down like it's like a cool looking, like fast ass drag car.
And Ford learns a lot from these too. They take a lot of their research with these demonstrators and they work them into the future models. So whether they're looking into electric full Mustang or maybe a hybrid Mustang that may be down the road. So I'd like to see what they get out of it. I posted about this actually with the day it was released as well. I won't fit. That's really my only thought on that. One of my Twitter followers mentioned maybe we should cut a hole in the roof and pull a Flintstone.
Just do one of those lightning multi-contour full flat seats.
Right. I'll just lay down to drive it. That's fine. So I'm 6'8" for any viewers that don't know how tall I am, and usually I don't fit in small vehicles very well. So I took a ride in the Dark Horse last summer at the New York Auto Show, or last spring at the New York Auto Show. Don't fit. Not a surprise. But.
Yeah, and now that as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the images of this Super Cobra jet. I love, like you kind of touched on, the wrap and the look and the design, and they're really tying everything together, it would seem, because that's a hell of a lineup between that and now the recently debuted switchgear, and let's not forget the super van that like set its own record up Pikes Peak. So I think
what other company is doing this too? Like, the 1400. Like, what other company is doing these things? I really do like, and Ford's actively spending money on these things. I mean, I know they're getting return on it in some sense, but nobody else is doing these things. We hear Elon talk about the new Roadster for the last like 7 years, and like Ford just built one. Like it's already like it's there. I know that you can't buy it, but I can't buy a Roadster either. I just think
you can get some money.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole different card. But I mean, I just think it's what other company is doing these things. I really believe that like it is just, and it's going to places where they may not have gone EV first, right? Like their minds are not in an EV sense. And then to showcase like, wait, EVs can do really cool things. And in some cases, like even better than what the ICE counterparts do. Like drag racing is one of those things where it's like, to me, it's like a perfect scenario. Like I understand that the noise might not be there, but as far as like speed, quickness, all of that, like boom.
And I'd argue there's going to be a share of noise. It's going to be different. It's going to be quieter, but you're still going to hear that thing ripping up.
The 1400 rips. Yeah, it's more like tire and like, electric whine, but yeah, it's still like, it's like a spaceship.
It's its own little goosebump moment for sure.
And you said the comment about drag racing. We all do that at stoplights, man. Come on now. We knew this was coming.
Within legalities, yes.
Oh, right. Sure. Under the speed limit, of course.
Is, and you're not drawing attention to
it's very true. It's very true.
But and that just, like Jay said, this will come to your consumer cars. They're spending money on this for a reason, and I guarantee it's for research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and with each of these demonstrators that gets unveiled, it's one of those things where I have had very few moments, probably none, where I'm not proud to be flying under the Ford Armada over these last few years. The decisions they're making, the things they're unveiling are just universally cool and got me very excited. So on that note, I think it's time to wrap up. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. I'm really thrilled with our participation tonight. So I think it's safe to say we'll probably be back next week. So kind of set a tentative date on your calendars to tune back in and listen to us talk about more exciting Ford stuff. So I'm just going to say have a good night. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Isaac, for enlightening us. I love talking to you. I hope we have you back on soon. So thanks, everybody, and good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.